Welcome folks, my name is Tom Beatty. I'm the chair of the Web Design and Development program at Newmont College of Computer Science, and today we're going to do some JavaScript programming. Okay, today we're going to talk about getting input from a input text box and use that on the front end. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going back to my mouse event listeners that we did in the last tutorial, and I'm just going to copy the style.css. So copy that, click on my text input, paste it there, and so now I've got it accessible here. If you don't have that from doing the last tutorial, then I'll just hold here for a moment. You can pause the video and copy the code. This is all of it here, so there isn't that much. Okay, once you've got that in place, let's go to our index.html and make sure that we are linking to it. So link href or hyperreference to style.css, rel equals style sheet, space / close the tag. And we save that and let's test it. It should turn everything gray, and sure enough it did. Okay, we're going to need some other things here too. I think the first thing that we want to put in here is let's put in a header. Well, actually, let's put in an input box. We'll be using those anyway, so we want to say type equals, it's going to be a text box that we're adding, and we'll give it an ID of input box 1. If we have an input box 1, that's a self-closing tag as well. If we have an input box 1, we probably are going to want an input box 2. I think while I'm at it, I'm going to put a little separator in here. Maybe ruin some of the surprise of what we're doing. I'm going to put a plus symbol right here. I'm going to make it a heading 1 tag. And then let's create another heading 1, but I'm going to give this an ID, and we'll make the ID answer. And I'm just going to go ahead and write in answer, colon. And then we need our button, and as before, instead of using an actual button, I'm going to use a div, and I'm just going to make it part of the button class. And since we have our style.css, that's going to make it look just fine. So we'll give it an ID of submit, make it part of the class btn, and we'll write on the button submit. So let's see what we've got. All right, there we have it. I'm going to make a couple of other changes. I'm going to mess with the style.css real quickly and give some styling to input boxes. So the only thing I think I'm going to change is the font size. I'm going to make 24 pixels so it's nice and big and easy to read. So let's come back here. I refresh and you can see my input boxes just got bigger. All right, everything else is going to happen in the JavaScript. So the first thing I want to do, I've got a bunch of different IDs here. I've got input box 1, input box 2, answer, and submit. I'm going to make those easier to work with in JavaScript by creating variables to hold those. So input box 1 equals document dot get element by ID input box 1. And I'm going to cut and paste that. So we've got input box 2, answer, and submit. Submit, input box 2, and answer. Okay, so there I've got those. I've got shortened names that I can use. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and add an event listener on my submit button so that when you click it, something happens. So submit, add event listener, click, and then we'll say it's going to run a function called do addition. So let's write that function. Const do addition equals, and this is a mouse listener, so an event does get passed. We don't really need the event, but I'm going to use it anyway. Well, at least add it in there. Now we need things to happen here. And I think the first thing I want to do is say let my answer equal input box 1 plus input box 2. Now we can't just add input box 1 and 2. We actually want to add the values from those. So I'm going to say dot value dot value. And if I go ahead and change my answer, I can say answer dot inner HTML equals my answer. And because I've already taken answer and I've put in I put in some text there to let us know that that was the answer. Put like answer colon. And since I'm using the backticks, I can do string templating and pass in my answer. Now, this isn't going to give us the result that we're hoping for. Let's see what actually happens. I'm going to say 3 plus 4 submit is 34. The problem is we're dealing with input boxes, and input boxes they take strings, and so it's not viewing 3 and 4 as numbers, so it can't really add them together. It's viewing them as strings, so it's concatenating. So it's taking 3 and concatenating it or putting it together with 4 rather than actually adding them. So what I want to do here is convert them to numbers. An easy way to do that is I can just say number. There are other ways to do it, but this works. So I'll save it, refresh, 3 plus 4, 7. But then I have to go and highlight over it and then change it. And every time I want to change it, that's kind of a pain. So maybe another thing we want to do after you hit submit is take our input box and set the value equal to an empty string. And do the same thing with our input box 2. And make that an empty string as well. Save it, refresh. Now I can say 4 plus 5, or excuse me, 5 plus 5 is 10. 4 plus 5 is 9. 7 plus 3 is 10. And there you have it. It works. We can read this data. We're using an event listener like we learned about in the last tutorial. Hopefully you can see some power. This gives us the ability to send information to JavaScript, and with the inner HTML, JavaScript can respond back. And this is all within a standard HTML page. Alright, if you like this video, please hit subscribe. Subscribe to my channel. I will provide more content in the future and keep it entertaining for you. Thanks a lot.